Right, we're live. Um, Manic Vandals podcast number 5. I looked it up beforehand this time, so I actually knew what number it was. Uh, so yeah, podcast number 5 um, with your host Churge, aka Dave, whatever dumbass alias I need, with my two partners in crime, Keith
Hey,
and Mike.
Hi. Sorry,
Hi.
my Wayne's World jokes. They're gonna continue a few more times. I promise it's almost over. I promise.
I guess.
that was pretty good.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, Garth. I love him.
Yeah.
All right, so I guess before we get started on real magic stuff, uh, this is a plea to any of our 10 listeners at the moment. We have a Discord channel, and we would really like it if somebody if one of the listeners would actually like join the Discord and you know, I don't know, just talk, let us know what you like, don't like, or if we say something stupid, you can let us know, or whatever. We can just chit chat because yeah, right now our Discord channel, it's literally just the three of us. Uh, so one of these days somebody is gonna join it, and they'll be the celebrity out of the four of us because uh, you know we're waiting for somebody. Uh, yeah, so the Discord link will be, I always have it in whatever video description or podcast description or whatever. So yeah, just do that, and we'll love you forever.
Yeah, you'll be number one.
Yeah. Yeah, the sacred numero uno. Uh, okay, so I guess having that said, we have uh, some big news from both of you guys. We have two mythic players, and amongst the three of us, Keith has reached mythic in standard, and Mike has reached mythic in draft. And he's what place are you right now? Like 600, 700 or something?
Okay, right. I'm watching it feverishly. So right this second, I'm 709.
Oh wow.
I got up to, yeah, right. I had to play because I was in the 800 2 days ago, and I could just tell I was gonna have to play. So I played 3 matches. So I lost the first one, which drove me nuts. And I dropped to 9. I actually didn't drop as far as I thought I would. I only dropped to 970 something.
Oh, that's
And then I
still a
won the
big
next
drop.
2. The first one that I won, I only actually yeah, as far as trying to fight the decay, it was bad. So I won the next one, and I only got to 920. And then I went against a platinum player, and I went up to 541. So I heard that it was pretty volatile right this second, but I also knew, because I hadn't played any matches in Mythic yet, I knew it would be particularly volatile for me. So when I hit 541, I stopped playing, but I've been watching it for the last I can get very specific here. I won that match, and it was like 4:55 p.m. 2 days ago. So right this second now, I'm 709. So I've lost, what is that, 168 spots. But
Oh wow.
at 709, I have 491 as a cushion. And right this second, there's 47 hours. No, there's 46 hours and roughly 45 minutes. I'm trying to do it in quarterly chunks. Um, so if I lose 10 per hour, I'll be at 1200. But the rate is still not quite going fast enough where like I'm still adding to like my cushion sort of thing. So I really want to get top 1200 for this because it is the first actual like draft that they're having for the Mythic Qualifier. And I'm sure it's hotly contested, but I will say it seems like it's decayed slower than I thought it would. I honestly thought
Good.
I'd be in the 800s at this point. So with still almost 500, spots as a cushion, with now 46 hours and 45 minutes left, I feel pretty good. But you know, nothing would surprise me because, like I said, it is a draft one, and so I feel like limited players are going to be going hard to make it. And then the only other thing that I've kind of noticed is because this set in general is kind of volatile as far as like the draft goes and the games go, just because of like the whole bomb centric sort of nature of the set. A lot of streamers seem to be having more trouble than they normally do.
Yeah.
Like actually being anywhere near the top 1200. Like a lot of streamers are in like percentages. So they're pretty far away, and I think because they played so much, they have to go on like ridiculous streaks to actually have a chance to make it. So it kind of seems like while it's a hotly contested month for sure for the Mythic Qualifier Unlimited, I feel like a lot of streamers, and then probably, and what I'm saying is probably other players too, they're probably having trouble getting in. So I feel like the people that are jumping me are probably people that are in diamond.
Wait,
That are gonna get
Mike,
placed.
sorry, unless it's just me, you have like robot Mike.
Yeah, I was getting it. I thought it was
Oh,
me.
sorry.
Yeah, it's better.
Let me.
Well, that's better. Whatever you just did.
All right. Okay. Yeah, I saw the. Sorry, I saw that the thing was. How about
No,
is
nah,
it?
it's a little rough.
All right. How about now?
That's good.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Sorry, I wasn't connected to the Wi-Fi. I saw it go yellow and then red. Um. All right. So assuming it's better now.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
No,
Um.
we pretty much heard everything, so you can just pick up where you left off. Yeah,
Right.
it's
So
good.
yeah. Thanks. Yeah, so more or less, I feel like the people that are jumping me are people that are in Diamond, getting into Mythic, and then maybe if they're not placed in the top 1200 immediately, they probably have to win another one or two. And then they're the ones jumping me. So it is going slower than I thought. And every minute that goes by, it feels good. I'm still 709 since the soliloquy started. So yeah. So we'll see what happens. If I do have to play and risk it all, I mean that's the way it goes. But the other thing is, this is also the first month where the Arena Open is also a limited one. So I feel like the offset of a lot of people probably being like too far outside because they're MMR and they played too much, so they're a little too it's a little too hard for them to get top 1200. Plus the fact that there's the Arena Open that's also limited. A lot of people might not care if they don't qualify for the Mythic qualifier.
Right.
So there's a couple things going, for and against me, I guess. But yeah, I would love to make it because, you know, generally when I get in Mythic, I do actually qualify for whatever reason. Like the one last month, I actually didn't, but we did get uh, Church's account qualified, and that's how we had our epic 2-3 run with Blue Black Rogues.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so I'm hoping. So we'll see.
uh, Seems like they make it like awfully like cumbersome to just uh, like it doesn't seem sustainable. The uh, like how to actually like the proper way to like stay in Mythic top 1200. it's like you're playing a game and it's like not the cards. You're like playing like the arena like ranking system.
Yeah, I no, yeah, I definitely agree with that in a general sense. I figure you got to imagine WotC is they optimize the game so more people have to play,
Right.
more or less. They want more gems bought and all that type of thing. Um, and you know, it's kind of interesting because you know, Magic is a global game. It obviously has a massive player base. I honestly don't know because I feel like they, especially for Arena, they never give the numbers, all that type of thing. Um, but it feels kind of strange being among like 1,200 people out of the entire world. Like it feels like it's a little tight of a number that they want you to make.
Right.
Um, so, you know, maybe one day they might like expand that number to like 1,600 or 2,000, which I don't see why that would hurt them at all.
Yeah, I don't either.
Um, because there would still be the same number of people trying to qualify just, you know, in the higher numbers. Like, you know, there might be people that quit playing when they're like 200 and they are even safer than ever before. But, you know, that same range of people fighting to get in wouldn't be that much different. It would still be kind of the same situation. So,
Yes. Yeah, I agree.
um, yeah,
And I would have to say, if they did open it up, what does that really change? That doesn't change day one at all. You know what I mean? Day one of the event stays the same.
totally. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So it's not really like it's overloading them if they open it up to even 2,500, you know, or something like that. So
Yeah.
totally.
Well,
Yeah.
uh, well, I was just gonna say I do definitely agree. Although they do give out gems in day one, so they would be giving out more gems technically, but I feel like that's sort of a drop in the bucket. I mean, I'm sure they're making plenty of money on gems either way. So
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
well, that would, I mean, like I spent more this season than I did, and I just bought the $50 package. But yeah, I mean, that's the streamers, they probably purchase a lot.
yeah, like you've ever seen Croaky's day one? Uh, I don't know how much he spends, but I mean, he literally just like cracks packs for like a half an hour. Uh, Kind of
Wow.
ridiculous,
Yeah.
but I mean, I'm sure he makes his money back, but I'm sure there's a lot of streamers that don't. So
Right.
it's yeah, it's sort of rough for the little guys out there, but
Yeah.
Is it actually possible to make your money back in constructed? Like, is that actually possible, or do you have to play limited to like
Well,
in theory make
eh,
your money back?
I think you have to play limited. I mean,
yeah, I
I
think
guess
so.
there's those events, but uh,
Well, I mean, as far as gyms, you don't make your money back. You know what I mean?
Right.
You know, you might like some of the events you get gyms and you can, like David said, you can play them like but you know they cost you gold. So if you don't do well, you lost gold. You know what I mean? So there's always a cost. So
Yeah,
right.
for
Yeah,
sure.
it definitely seems significantly easier to. I mean, this is actually something I did want to have like an episode on. It's like it seems like if you just want to like accrue packs on arena, you basically have to play limited because it's like even if you
Right.
go like 2 and 3 or whatever it is, uh, yeah, you're not going like infinite, but you're still like when you break even, it's like 2.5 wins or something.
right, it's just 2.5 wins.
Uh, yeah, so it's like if you would like if you have a couple rounds where you get like 3 or 4 wins, then it's like you're basically making packs. So uh, I mean, it seems like it seems like there's little reason to just open packs, which is kind of annoying because I don't like I can't do what Mike does. So
I can't either. And what I do is I just save my gold. You know what I mean? And save my gold, and then you crack packs when you have to. You know, and
right.
just and then all I'm really doing there is trying to get the rares, so at wild cards, so I can make whatever deck I need.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess you know, I guess that's how they like designing it. I don't know if it's like a way to get people to play limited. I feel like people have very different tastes in how they like to play the game. So, um, you know, for me, limited kind of works out, so that illusion of going infinite is is nice. But it doesn't really happen for me. I do, you know, kind of stay afloat, but yeah, it seems kind of rough for constructed players. Like I feel like it's one of those things where if you know, if you just so happen to either enjoy whatever deck was already kind of tier one, so you don't really have to like use too much to accrue gold, which you can convert into gems, that type of thing. Like you know, there might be certain seasons where like it works out for certain players, I guess, to not have to spend too much. But if you're one of those people that, you know, uh, complete the entire set every time a set comes out, I mean that's got to cost a decent amount if you're not playing limited. So
Right. Yeah, and what I do is, and I do standard best of one, I usually just stay in the same shell, and
right,
then when new cards come out, just fill them into the same shell, and then to try and keep it competitive. You know.
yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
it all
Yeah, I
makes
mean
sense.
it seems like they have it so pretty you can pretty easily have like one like competitive fully built deck at any point like for free. Uh but it seems like after that it takes like a pretty, you know, hard nosedive into your wild cards after that.
Yeah, it does, and I mean, I feel like now after maybe a year of doing it, that I'm comfortable with the decks I have. I mean, I've got three or four very competitive decks. Depending on the situation. Let me say it that way. Like
Right.
Mono Green was great coming up to Mythic, but it got into Mythic and it turns into a 51% win rate, and it depends on if you're on the play or on the draw or whatever. So,
Yeah.
I mean, it made a big difference. So I had to get away from it. So, and that everybody's running mono white. And if you're not on the play with mono green, if you're not on play with mono green, you're shafted, man. So,
Yep,
Yeah. Um
it's rough.
yeah.
yeah, yeah, I've been seeing more and more uh Voice of the Blessed every time I you know, check out a stream or play a little bit of standard or whatever. So,
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's coming out.
Mm,
It's
it
good
is.
times.
Yeah, that's why. I mean, I made a mono black deck that I only got to play it for 3 matches, but it did great, and it was 2-1. So, and I was going to stay with that on the Mythic Trail, and I'll probably get it back out and start playing again. But the season's almost up. When's it end, Mike?
It ends Tuesday at 3 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah, I don't think I'm going to get to a ranked number by then.
Yeah, it's rough. Like I have a streamer on right now, and like this is one of these people that like I know they're always like going for number one,
Right.
and he's in a match. It's a guy. I don't want to like say the players, I guess I could, but either way, it's a player that I know is always, you know, going for number one, and he's stuck at 91% in limited, and he's going against a mythic player that's at 92%. So that's the situation I'm talking about, where like these are players that they have to go like 50-0 to
Yeah.
like actually get to where they you know, want to get. So you know, I'm gay. But how this all started was Dave talking about like how you're playing the system a little bit to stay in, and I do think I play the system relatively correct. Not that it always works out, but yeah, like I feel like you gotta not play if you're not reasonably confident that you're gonna like be in the top 50. I've heard numerous times that like if you're in the top 50, you kind of are in a different sort of like rank window where like you only go up and down like a few spots. But if you're outside of that top 50, again, I don't know, that feels semi-anecdotal, but people that are in that sort of range of quality players, like they kind of all seem to say the same thing.
So they put you in a bubble. That's what they do.
Yeah. You're kind of like isolated with like smaller jumps and drops. So so either way, we'll see. We'll see what happens. I'm 709. I'm still 709, and we've been on for about
Awesome.
15 minutes. I love it. I love it. So yeah, anyways. Yeah.
I guess we'll just record until you're at 800.
Yeah.
So
Well, hopefully we're on until the season ends.
yeah.
I would love it.
Yeah, I hope so. I look forward to it. I really want to see that. I mean, I even if I mean, let's face it, even if I made ranked, I would do horribly because I'm not a drafter, and so, but it's still the challenge. I'm always presented with the challenge, and but yeah, it's,
Yeah, that could be our segue into this limited format,
yeah.
or maybe it's not. Yeah, Dave, did you want to talk about standard at all, or constructed in a general sense?
No. I mean that's more if Keith wanted to chime in with anything on that.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think for me, it's standards pretty stable after the set came in. I mean, the Voice of the Blessed is making an impact. I think Mono White's gotten good rewards out of the new set, and Mono Green picked up a few cards, and I haven't made those into my Mono Green deck yet, but I kind of switched over to black. I mean, it's either that or I teased a little bit that I'm thinking about going to the dark side. If it is going to be so easy to rank with, why haven't I played it? Nah, it's just the humor of it all. But I don't know. I may even attempt an is it, but the mono black, it looks like it's got enough board wipe in it and it's sustainability, to where it can hold.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, I think I'm happy with it. Hang on one second.
okay. Yeah, it's fine.
Yes, as far as standard goes, because I do like white weenie decks, and it just so happens that they're good right now. I've been playing a little bit of standard in between, and I've kind of noticed. So I'm in Diamond 4, so I kind of hit that like little wall. Now I haven't played too much since I hit Diamond 4, but I've definitely noticed. I don't really see on the best of one ladder where I'm at least. I don't really see a whole lot of is it. I actually don't see a whole lot of mono green either. I actually see mostly mono white mirrors, mono black, which I feel like hoses mono white pretty good. They have a lot of creatures in the beginning that either like Shambling Ghast. Generally, they'll that's a card where it threatens trades early for a while. But generally they'll use it for treasure tokens for ramping, or they have Eye Twitch, which will net them card advantage. So yeah, I see a lot of mono black because pretty much like if they kind of stall your attacks early and then they board wipe you like turn 4 with a Meat Hook Massacre just for 2 toughness, so it pretty much wipes mono whiteboard out.
Yes.
And then they start getting all their value cards afterwards. So I see that a lot. And then the other decks I see a lot are life gain decks. Green white seems to be relatively easy for mono white to still beat, but I feel like the Orzhov version of life gain, it's a cleric deck. Voice of the Blessed is definitely in it, among other cards. But that also seems to hose mono white pretty good too, because their creatures just start outscaling yours. Like Luminarch aspirants are nothing compared to the stat boosting that black white can do, or
Yeah.
green white. But green white seems to have worse removal and interaction in general. So that's what I've been seeing in standard. So
Yeah,
uh,
and that's the reason I went to the mono black is because of the meat hooks, and then
yeah,
there's a lot of builds out there, but nobody addresses the issue with Lear and
yep,
so I actually run the Callous Blood Mage, um, which it's a 3 cost 2/1, but it gives you an option of draining, exiling their graveyard. So, or draw a card or make a chump blocker, whatever. But I run that because I think it's more important to have a way to get rid of their graveyard.
for sure.
And like I said, best of one's got to be like the Swiss Army knife. It's got to handle everything. So as best it
Yep,
can.
yeah,
But
yeah.
yeah,
It's
the
oh,
only
sorry, Keith.
no, I was gonna say the only downfall I've discovered about the mono black is the game time. But still yet, I mean, the games are longer. They're going to be twice as longer as a mono white. But your win rate, if your win rate's good, then you should be all right. And that's what I've noticed. Like in Mythic, you got to chain the wins together. You can
Yeah,
win 2, lose 1, but it's not as good as winning 3. You know what I mean? Yeah, in a row, you got to chain them together.
yeah, yeah. They yeah, it's the higher up you go, it seems like it's more and more designed to get you to that 50% win rate average.
Mhm.
So yeah, it makes it definitely makes it rough up there. And I don't really have experience being in Mythic and constructed, but I can imagine like in limited you already have to play a lot of games.
Right.
Um but it's nowhere near the amount of games you have to play in constructed. So um yeah, it must be quite intense and quite volatile.
Yeah.
Um
At
so
some point, I'll share my. I guess I could do that with Dave, and at some point he can put it on the one of our podcasts. But like the season, I can show how many games I played, how much time it took to get the mythic, and
yeah.
Yeah, we could definitely do that.
yeah. So,
Yeah, I love
but
it.
yeah,
And then yeah.
Um, uh, all right, should we pivot over to limited?
Yeah,
sure.
let's pivot. Yeah. Yeah, let's do it. Yeah, I all right, so I guess I'm the limited person on here.
Yes, you are.
And yeah, so now in my little synopsis here, I think when we did the last podcast, I had actually trophied my first 2 drafts on the first day. So I was like, oh, this set I got it figured out. Like I played so much of Midnight Hunt where like, oh, like I'm finally starting to learn how drafting works where I can kind of trust my own judgment and blah blah blah. Um like kind of having a familiarity of like, the way certain mechanics are going to work, like Disturb, because I was in Midnight Hunt, and then it's in Crimson Vow too, blah 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 blah. But then, so pretty much after that very first day, I went a week where I was doing absolutely awful. Now there was a lot of, and there still is, there's a lot of criticism about this set regarding the like bomb heavy nature of it, which also makes both the draft portion and the games more volatile because you're going through sort of a lottery system of like what rares you open, and then also the lottery system of like what bombs your opponents are going to have. Um, so anyway, so I was kind of in that sort of like state for about a week. But then actually last Saturday, I finally turned a corner with the set where I don't really have I don't have the exact number right in front of me, but I was in like the high I was in like the high I was in like the low 50s but on 17 lands, I didn't actually sign up for 17 lands until after those first 2 trophies. That was like the reason why I signed up for it, to be honest. Finally, so I don't have the true numbers with me, but I had a lot of 1 and 3s and 0 and 3s and best of 1. Well, no, best of 1, and then I was mythic on my primary account, so I was only playing best of 3s on there. So I had a lot of 1 and 3s there. I had a few 0 and 3s, but then that fateful Saturday, I went on a run. So from that day, I went 2 and 1, 3 and 0, 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 1 and 2, 3 and 0, 0 and 3, 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 1 and 2, 3 and 0, 2 and 1, 2 and 1, 3 and 0. So I started getting trophies. I've had 3 trophies in the last 2 days. So I feel like I kind of figured out the set, and there is a lot to talk about because I feel like the sort of like reputation of this set is kind of shifted now because now we're like 2 weeks into the format. So it's actually interesting. If we're just sort of diving in, the synopsis of this set, like how I just said, is that the set is very bomb heavy and it's a Prince format, meaning that this set is not really based on a collection of like good commons and uncommons put together, like and then curving out all that type of thing. It's kind of like, oh, what bomb am I going to see and what am I going to lose to? So it's interesting because I feel like this set now has been out 2 weeks, and I feel like it's kind of shifted back a little bit. It's not a pauper format, but it's not quite as princey of a format as it originally was sort of like said. I think what's happened is a lot of decks, people have started to figure out there's a lot of cards that are sort of like undesirable. It's kind of like any set nowadays in Magic where because there's no card that is just vanilla. So almost every card kind of has a home if you have the right deck for it. And I feel like there's a lot of decks that have sort of come forward where there's certain cards that were always just kind of like considered bad cards or like mediocre 23rd card at best, where a lot of these cards are actually making decks like work really well. So I think what's happened is there's more aggressive decks that have popped up that can beat bombs, and then sort of like knowing when to expect certain bombs at certain spots on a curve. Like, people just now know how to play around them and stuff, and like knowing when to like leave mana open for certain situations that come up, all that type of thing. So I feel like drafting this set is actually now easier than Midnight Hunt was, because Midnight Hunt, because there weren't that many like blatant bombs in it, you kind of had to juggle finding synergistic cards, but because all the cards were kind of medium, you had to sort of like navigate like what deck do I want to move into and when. Whereas with this one now, it's almost easier. So there's there's a lot of content that's come out about this set at this point. But it seems like the general consensus here is now there's about 30 rares, maybe a little less, that like if you open them, like you're supposed to more or less at all costs like force playing them. I know not every draft works out like that, and context matters, of course. But like, so pretty much is like the way it is. If you open one of these like 25 to 30 bombs, you definitely take it over everything. And then if you don't open one of those bombs, you take one of the premium removal spells. If you don't open one of the premium removal spells, which are like Bleed Dry, Hero's Downfall, Abrade, Flame Blessed Bolt, or the whatever the Rending Flame. So if you don't get one of like those cards, then you sort of look at a list of premium uncommons. And then if you don't get one of those premium uncommons, then you're looking at like the top commons. So and then in this set, kind of like the way the curve works, there's not really like the general idea of like having like good 2-drops that was actually like extremely important in Midnight Hunt is actually almost the opposite in this set. So actually in this set, the premium 2-drops have been replaced now with premium 1-drops. So if you're drafting, you don't really want to force a good curve and like take a mediocre 2-drop for the sake of curve now. Because the way it kind of works is that a lot of these 2-drops that aren't like the uncommons, they get outvalued or they kind of become irrelevant relatively quickly in a game. So there's a few 1-drops that are worth mentioning here. It's Lantern Bearer and Traveling Minister. And then to a slightly lesser extent, Voldaire and Epicure, because you're not going to take that super highly the way you actually do take Ministers and Lantern Bearers super highly. So there's that element to it. And then there's a lot of cards in this set that help stabilize, and that's kind of like what a card like Traveling Minister does. And then like 3-drops like Apprentice Sharpshooter, which is like that 1/4 with reach. There's Gluttonous Guest, like 1/4, and every time you use a bleed token, you gain 1 life.
Oh wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of life gain in general in this set, like the Kindly Ancestor, where it's like it's a 2/3, so it can block fairly well, and then it becomes a disturb enchantment to give something lifelink. There's Diregraph Scavenger, which is a 4-drop in black where it has Death Touch. You exile a creature card when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life, they lose 2 life. Stuff like that. Desperate Farmer. It's a 2/2 lifelink where if a creature you control dies, it becomes a 4/3 lifelink. There's all sorts of stuff like that. I feel like the most most relevant of like those type of cards are in green. So it's what is that? What is the one? The main one is Brambleworm, where it's the 7-drop. It's a 7/6 with reach and trample. So when it enters the battlefield, you gain 2 life, and then if it's in the graveyard, you can exile it again for 5 more life.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so there's stuff like that, and then Flourishing Hunter is the common version, which is the sort of lineage of 6-drops in green, where it's a 6/6 and it gains you life. This one is kind of based off the highest level toughness creature you have in the battlefield, so it, sometimes it's better, sometimes it's worse. So there's a lot of cards like that where like you can stabilize pretty easily. So like the misnomer that was happening in the beginning of the format was you either have the bombs in your deck or you go hyper aggro to go under the bombs. But that
Outpace
wasn't
it, yeah.
right, and that wasn't really working because there's a lot of stabilizing in this format that kind of works very well. So it still can work, but it's not quite the way the whole bomb thing with bomb or aggro plan, like it didn't really play out like that at this point. So getting back to the draft portion, it's almost easier to draft this set now because it's almost like cookie cutter what you're supposed to do. Now, there is still the game that you want to play in this format of you want to make sure that you leave yourself available to being able to draft a bomb in like pack 2, for example, and like not like have to like completely change your strategy, but that's a lot of times that's what you end up doing. Like if you the goal is to be heavy 1 color in pack 1, really cut it off, so in pack 2 like you'll reap the benefits from that color while also leaving yourself open to any sort of bombs or an open color coming back your way. And then the same thing that applies for pack 3. So I kind of feel like I figured out the set a little bit as far as that goes. And then as far as like another difference between Midnight Hunt, which I was more used to this set, is that because of the bomb heavy nature that you're sort of dealing with in the draft portion, pretty much every color pair is viable because if you open a bomb in that color like, it's that makes your color pair strong all of a sudden. The strongest color pair, if you're not being reliant on a bomb, is black red still. So like that hasn't changed. But the seems like, in my opinion, the second strongest color pair, which is kind of weird, is it's actually blue white. Blue white is actually it's not as dependent on rares or mythics for it to be a very strong deck. And this actually goes into the whole finding cards that were underdrafted that actually become extremely valuable in a color pair. So nurturing presence is the secret ingredient to blue white, where that card is it's the enchantment where every time a creature enters the battlefield, it gets +1/+1 per creature, and then it actually makes a 1/1 flying spirit token. So that card in blue white, because it kind of goes late. I don't actually have it in front of me right this millisecond, but I'll search it.
Yeah, I was looking it up. I haven't seen it.
What's the name again?
It's a nurturing presence. So like average taken at it's taken at 10.22. So I mean that's like a late pick that you often like have available to you. And in blue white, see, the reason why that card works so well in blue white is because blue white has a lot of cards where targeting your creatures matter. So there's the signpost uncommon is Brine Comber. So that one, it makes a 1/1 token every time an aura enchants it. So that card like works very well with that card. And then the uncommon Storm Chaser Drake, which is the 2/1 flyer for 1 and a blue. Like that's another one where Nurturing Presence is amazing on it. So pretty much like what you're doing is you're pumping a lot of flyers. That's why Nurturing Presence isn't good in other color pairs, because pumping a creature like +1/+1 that doesn't have evasion isn't really that relevant. But like if you put that on the Guttering Skulker, the Gutter Skulker, it's unblockable when you attack, which is one creature. It's stuff like that. So blue white actually is very powerful without mythics and rares. The other reason why blue white works really well is because actually those 2 premium 1-drops, they both are amazing in it too. Traveling Minister, because giving a evasive creature +1 is actually much more relevant than putting it on a ground creature just to like give the plus life. Of course, it's still amazing in almost all color pairs, but like in a flying deck, it like really makes it work. And then Lantern Bearer is just a 1/1 flyer that you can use later out of the graveyard to get +1/+1 and flying again. It's just a very strong 1-drop. So yeah, blue white is actually a very strong color pair in the set, which is cool. And it's one of those things that didn't really become public knowledge until about a week ago. So the format, just like every other format in history, has evolved in like the early to mid stages. So it's actually been kind of fun, and I'm happy that I sort of figured the set out a little bit. I'm not like a genius or an expert by any means, but yeah.
You're,
So
you're
it's
only
actually
you're only top 700 out of like all the millions of players, but
Yeah, there
yeah,
you
you
go.
don't know that much, I guess.
yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I don't know. I think the problem with Magic in general, or I shouldn't say problem, I should say the conundrum of Magic in general, is that because it is a game of luck and chance to a certain extent, it's all about mitigating the risk and chance. So it's like I feel like you never really know everything. Like no matter how much there's always a little more to gain. So I think, given my experience with Midnight Hunt and like playing a lot, because it was a very fun set and it was very replayable. I really didn't want to like give up on this set the way a lot of people seem to have early in the format. And luckily, I think it paid off, because I feel like I almost understand this set better to a certain extent, because it's feel like the draft portion is actually easier because it's a little more like obvious what you're supposed to do early.
Yeah.
And then because it's more obvious early, it makes your following up decisions easier then too. So I feel like the only times that and it happens, like the times when the draft portion becomes difficult is when your starting pack is very weak, where you kind of like are like a mix of like three different colors, and like you don't really have direction as far as like what the cards themselves want to do. So it's like if you have like a certain strategy or archetype that you want to be in one of the colors, and then you have a certain archetype or strategy in another one of the colors where they don't match up even if you end up in those color pairs. Like that's when you can kind of lead into problems, because like if you have sort of like a, let's say, you have a couple exploit cards that like want to be blue black, but then you also have a couple life matters cards that you want to sort of be blue or black white. Like, it kind of makes your deck, even if you end up in one of those like three archetypes, you still might end up with a weak deck. So that stuff still happens, and that's where like the whole variance of what bombs you open sort of like come into play. But yeah, but you kind of know, you know what to expect when that happens. Like there's no real mystery that deck is probably not going to play out very well. So in that regard, that's why I feel like I kind of know this set better. So yeah, it's interesting. And then as far as the games go, I think the secret's kind of out. Like this is actually, like I was saying before, the whole like bomb versus aggro plan. The games don't really play out like that as often anymore. So like it's just kind of like a Midnight Hunt. It's kind of a board state board stall type set where you really want to save your removal. Like unless like you kind of have a reasonable chance of outracing your opponent by using a lot of your removal early, or if you have like a lot of it and you have gas to sustain you to keep to keep the engine running if you're using all your cards. You really don't want to use your removal until there's a threat that like you can't deal with even with a board state. That's kind of the way the set seems to go. So it's it's fun. There's been a lot of like complicated games. There's a lot of games where you feel like you have it completely in hand, and then the whole thing changes. I actually think in this set more than Midnight Hunt, because of the swingy nature of this set. There's been a lot of games where you can be at like 20, 30. I've been at games where I'm at like 30 something life with like a lot of creatures on the board, and you still actually kind of know, even if the opponent's down to like 4 life, you can still actually feel like you're losing just because you kind of know one card can change it all.
Yeah.
There's a lot like the life gain swings, a bramble worm coming down and like, essentially like, changing the equation of like your flyers that you were just swinging with, where, they can kill the biggest one turn, second biggest one the next turn, blah, blah, blah. So it's, it's been interesting. The groan worthy cards, that definitely still applies. I don't think that part bothers me as much as it did for that week where I was like really you know not doing well, because now you kind of just have you kind of just have to accept it, that type of thing. I pretty much have gone against every groan worthy card other than Toxrill. It's Toxrill the something. Toxrill the corrosive. Yeah, the Toxrill the corrosive. So I haven't actually played against that one yet, but every other like groan worthy bomb I've gone against or I've had. So I kind of see how they work. And yeah, I feel like as far as like so like that, I know I said the thing before about like the cards you definitely take no matter what. So that's still a thing, but there are only really like 4 or 5 cards where when it comes down, like you kind of lost. There's really only like 4 or 5 of those, and that's still Avabruck Caretaker. So that's the 4 and 2 green for the 4/4 hexproof that pumps all your creatures. It's Toxrill Corrosive because when that comes down, the 7-drop, and like every turn, all the opponent's creatures get -1/-1. Then you start making slugs. And then it's a Hullbreaker Behemoth. That's the 7-drop that has flash that can't be countered. That every time you play a spell, it you can bounce stuff. So that card's still groan worthy. And then the other big one is I think actually it seems like this is the one that's considered the most groan worthy of all. It's the Dread Feast Demon, because that's the one where if you don't have an exile removal spell, like the turn it comes down and open mana to cast it, it makes copies of a 6/6 flying trample creature. And then that the token actually does it too. So I think that
wow.
card is so like pretty much like if you don't kill it, it's not flying trample, it's just flying, sorry. But so if you don't handle it the turn it comes down, it just exponentially becomes a problem. So those are like the 4 that are like truly groan worthy. I put in there as the 5th one, Helana and Elena, partners, because that card is a 4-drop. So the other ones are actually like 6 or 7 drops. Helana and Elena, it feels very groan worthy to me because if it comes down to turn 4 and you're making something that either already was or now is a threat, you kind of have to deal with the creature you just pumped because a 2/3 lifelinker is much different as a 4/5 lifelinker. And then every turn that'll happen, the +2/+2, assuming that Helana and Elena's power is still 2/2. But Helana and Elena also has reach. And I think it has first strike also. So I mean it's kind of just like so it's just like it's a severe problem when that card comes down. Because you have to deal with, it's essentially you have to like 3-for-1 yourself to deal with like all the things that just happened when it came down. So those are the 5 that I think are just like the groan worthy thing still applies, but you can win against most of the other cards. Actually, I'll put in another one, Faithbound Judge, which I actually just went against that card for the first time today.
I've seen it.
I would put that one in it as well. I think the reason why that one's not quite as vile as the other ones are is because if you do like exile it, it's really not that big of a deal, and the clock that it sort of implies, if it comes down turn 3, it's very groan worthy, but there are a lot of exile cards in this format, so it's kind of slow. It is a little slow. So I feel like it's not quite as groan worthy as the other 5 are, but the inevitability that it implies is definitely still annoying to go against. So there's all that.
Well, I think we discovered something here. I don't think anyone else has a groan meter, so I think I think we got a new classification here. We just we have a groan meter.
Yeah. Hey, the groan test is definitely a thing. And I feel like like those on our groan meter are definitely 10 out of 10s.
Yes.
Yeah, they make the blood boiling meter, shoot up for sure. Yeah, there's no doubt about it. But like how I was saying, the discovery of certain decks have kind of like worked around the bomb thing, and like some of those other cards that have sort of like come to light are I know we've talked about this card previously, the Kessig Flame Breather. That's actually an example of a card. So that's the 1 in a red 1/3. Every time you cast a non-creature spell, it deals damage to the opponent. that's one of those cards that like sort of has become like a deck. So that has made blue-red very powerful, and it's actually become very powerful in black-white as well. Because people have realized, like how I said, those 2-drops are very weak in this format. They get stonewalled pretty quick. So the 1/3 body, I know we've compared it to Thermo Alchemist from Midnight Hunt, but the fact that this card actually has 1 power on it, it makes it so it kind of trades with a lot of stuff. So you can't just like swing into it the way people would swing into Thermo Alchemist.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's common, you can stack them. You can stack them pretty easily, and it's one of those cards that a lot of people still aren't taking. I think the secret will be out on that one. I think the secret's out, but I feel like it's going to start getting taken higher than it used to, because it actually is just like a relevant 2-drop in any red-based deck now. I feel like in red-green, it's still kind of undesirable, but I feel like if you're starting in red, it's a 2-drop now that people sometimes take now over Blood Petal Celebrant, which is that 2/1 first striker that when it dies it makes a blood token. So that's like one of those cards that like you never would have taken it over a Blood Petal Celebrant before, but now people seem to more often than before. Because yeah, like if you stack these Kessick Flame Breathers in a spell heavy deck, the other card then that is perfect in conjunction with the Kessick Flame Breathers is Ancestral Anger. So that's another one of those cards that used to be like, oh, I'm not going to take this card. Like, I don't want to like take this card, like pick 7 over like, other cards that'll probably make my deck and hope that I see more. Because that's one of those cards that stacks. It's the one red where it gives the creature +1 +0 until end of turn, but it gives you an additional +1 +0 for every card, every Ancestral Anger in the graveyard, and then it draws the card. So it essentially cycles for 1 red. So it's actually it's actually kind of a great value card, even if you don't have too many of them. So like, just imagine if like, you have a deck with like 4 Kessick Flame Breathers and then like 5 Ancestral Angers. Like, you're dealing a lot of damage right to the face without even doing anything. So
Yeah.
it's stuff,
Wow.
so it's stuff like that where some of these like secret tech decks that don't really care about the board state too much, where like, as long as you're not taking too much damage yourself, like you don't have to actually swing to deal damage. So it's it's stuff like that. I think the other major color pair that is actually very strong and it's not too reliant on rares and mythics is black white, because that's another deck where a lot of the life gain that you get in it, and it's signpost uncommon, it'll just net you a ton of card advantage, because like a lot of cards like let's say like Gluttonous Guest, which is like another one of those glue commons where like it kind of fits in a lot of like black decks. Like in black white, if you have like life gain engines where you don't have to actually attack, so like life linkers of course are great, but Traveling Minister where like you gain life without having to actually do anything, and then Gluttonous Guest, Markov Purifiers, you'll draw a card every turn, so you're gaining a ton of card advantage. And then if you have a lot of evasive threats like multiple Heron of Hopes, um, you know that's one of those cards that, even though it's a common, is definitely like a removal magnet. But if you have like 3 or 4 of them in your deck, they're not going to be able to keep killing all of them, and because you're already at 45 life, like you're gonna win a race.
Yeah.
So yeah, there's I actually am starting to enjoy the gameplay of this set as well, because yeah, there's definitely like viable color pairs, and you have to assume, I know you have to assume the opponents have bombs, but you also have to assume you have a couple bombs in there yourself that are going to make the opponent groan too. So
That's
Right.
yeah,
right.
It's for everybody.
Yeah. It's
yeah,
all about
exactly.
making the opponent groan.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, making the opponent groan is better than making yourself groan for sure.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
yeah, I love
Waiting
it.
for it to happen to yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So where are you at right now? Are you still same rank?
So I'm okay. So we've actually been on for about 50 minutes now, which is probably me talking for 49 minutes of it. And I've only dropped 3 spots, so I'm at 712.
Oh
See
wow.
that? Yeah. So that's how that's how that rate that I keep worrying about, where like I feel like it's gonna click all of a sudden, where people are just gonna start jumping me. The rate is it's continuing to be in my favor. So let's see what it is now. It's 5:05, so I'll be conservative and say it's 45 hours left. No, it's 46 hours left. So it's 488 divided by 40. So I need to lose 10.6 spots per hour to drop out of the top 1200. So when I checked it last, it was like 10.4 something. If an hour goes by and I only drop 3 spots, that feels good. And because it's a Sunday and it's like the afternoon, like in pretty much all of America right now, I feel like this would be like sort of like a higher volume moment to be playing. So only losing 3 spots since this podcast started feels pretty good. Feels pretty good.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I wonder. It's sort of a weird weekend, though. It's sort of hard to gauge the rate because it's like it is like the Thanksgiving weekend. So it's like, are people playing more or less? And
right.
it is like on a Sunday, do people play more than average than they would during the
Uh,
week?
I don't know. It depends on like what you said. Are people traveling right now, or typically Sundays I play, but more than average.
Yeah. And then I think the other sort of thing that you know, makes me a little bit happier is that because it's still a holiday weekend, I feel like a lot of people are probably like doing family stuff or like
Yeah,
friend stuff.
yeah,
So, you know, I don't mind that either.
yeah.
Um,
Well, yeah. You got to imagine though, if people aren't traveling, they're sitting around playing. I think they had that big show in Las Vegas this week too, didn't they?
yeah, they did. Yeah, a
Yeah,
lot of people, a lot of streamers were away for that.
yeah. So that probably interrupted their schedule, which is good for us.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I
Yeah,
love it.
we sneak in through the shadows like
Well,
cockroaches.
yeah, I'm the sneaking one in. Mike's not. Mike's kicking in the front door. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm trying. I'm trying. Um, but yeah, I'm still gaming the system, so the best I can. So yeah, like I'm still trying to play to keep the the engine running of the knowledge of the set, but I've been on my main account. I've been doing best of three, so
Well, that's good.
definitely still going at it.
That's good.
Not as often though. And then of course I'm also paranoid about if I play best of three, will that affect my quote unquote MMR in best of one? Um, but of course I had just gotten off a trophy, so I figured I'd leave it there. So I'm trying to do all the secret superstitious things to keep me going.
Yeah. That's good.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Um, so yeah, yeah, as far as limited goes, I'm not sure if there's anything else in particular. I mean, if you wanted to go through like certain cards or anything like that, I was kind of doing that already, I guess. Um,
I would say, is there anything that you uh, like? There's probably like a common opinion. Is there anything you would like disagree with, or uh, like uh, I don't know, like some sort of like top 700 player insight you have that people may not know about?
um, as far as like certain, I don't know. I'm kind of
Well, like I know one example would be like you're talking about that like 6 mana removal card that everyone was like telling you to take, but you thought it was. I mean, it always depends on the situation, but was that like, do you think that card is just like not that good or like
Oh, so
overrated?
yeah, actually, right. Actually, oh, yeah, it was actually it was the reverse. They were telling me, why do you have that card in your deck? You already have good removal. And then uh, I was saying the opposite. And the reason why. So we're talking about Grizzly Ritual. So the deck that actually got me to 541, it was a quick draft, best of one, and I don't actually have any rares or mythic creatures. So but I have 3 heroes downfalls in it. I have a bleed dry, 3 flame blessed bolts, and then the card that everyone was telling me to cut was Grizzly Ritual. Um, and so like in that isolated example, Grizzly Ritual, uh, I feel like that card. I know historically in Magic, like inefficiently costed removal spells are I mean they're almost always playable, but they're not like high picks per se. Um, but in this set, blood tokens are actually very powerful because it gives you the ability to cycle out lands that you draw late and stuff like that. So in like the example that we're talking about here, um, I have a red black deck now. In red black in this format, generally it's vampire based, so it's blood based. Generally, you can actually have like a black red spells leaning deck where, and that's more of a recent creation, but that's like the Kessig Flame Breathers and the Lambolt Raconteurs, which is the uncommon 2/4 that um, on the day side it's 1 damage per non-creature spell, and then on the night side it's 2 damage per non-creature spell. But anyways, black red, you generally want to be making as much blood as you can because the goal more or less is wherever your curve tops, you don't want to actually need to play additional lands. So like if you get to 6 lands and your curve is at 6, you don't want to you want to essentially blood away every single land you get. So
Right.
the long story short, there, everyone wanted me to cut it because I already have good removal spells. But my point in my deck was that I didn't make that much blood in my deck, and I'm kind of like a weird hybrid in mine of spells and vampires. Because I definitely have a couple vampire cards in it, but I also have 2 of those flame breathers, and I actually have one of those Lambolt Recantors.
Okay.
So I want the Grizzly Ritual in there because it gives me 2 blood tokens when I cast it, and I also have a lot of spell matters creatures. So that's my soliloquy on that. And I feel like in a overall, kind of like I was saying, like with Nurturing Presence before, Kessig Flame Breather more recently, there are a lot of cards that are very specific to certain circumstances. Um, so I'm trying to think of like other cards that maybe I'm,
Uh,
top
well,
top
we
top
gotta
7. Yeah.
we gotta wrap it up. Uh, Keith has to run, as you can sort of tell.
Oh,
Oh no, he
oh,
can't see me. You
he's
there?
running.
Oh, so so
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we can keep going.
Yeah, well, yeah, here, let me go back on the video. Yeah, I've actually got to jump. Now you guys can continue on, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to cut you guys off, but you guys are doing great.
Okay. Well, I think we should actually, uh, if nothing else, just split this up into 2 separate videos.
Yeah.
Uh, that way we can keep the uploads like a little more like fluid instead of just having like random like 3 hour bombs.
Yeah.
Uh,
And if you guys are, well, we can talk about it offline, but I'm really, I mean, I love the dialogue that's it's in the limited, and I know Mike, I keep putting you in a spotlight, but it's just I'm just amazed at what you can do. I mean, I really am. It's I'm not trying to blow you up, but I mean, from constructed, I build my pack and I go.
and I know what I have. I mean, and not just you. There are other guys that do it too, but they start out with nothing and build a deck and still very competitive, which is amazing. You know.
Thanks. Yeah. I think it's just it's kind of like how every format has its own flavor. I think I enjoy the entire universe and trying to solve it mentality of limited. So, for
Yep.
me, like a lot of those like inherent difficulties of doing all that, like, I enjoy. There's certain like basic knowledge that I guess if you're familiar with limited, that sort of gets presumed. Like, you generally end up 2 color pairs. You pretty
Right.
much, 17 lands is the baseline. Like, you know what I mean? There's a lot of like basic knowledge that I think sort of just grows over time. And then it's just a question of trying to adjust to whatever the new set of cards are.
Yeah.
So yeah, no, thank you. I know I appreciate that. And like I keep saying though, like being in Mythic doesn't really mean much. I mean, if I was a streamer, I don't know if I would be in 700 right now because maybe I would have felt obligated to keep playing best of one.
Yeah.
Unless I switch to best of three. I know a lot of people they don't do that, but I'm just saying I feel like my level of like the amount that I can play, I feel like it's sort of like again, it's a variance on an even higher level scale than like playing in a game or having a draft. Um, I think it kind of just work. It's like it works out for me a lot. It seems like when it comes to like actually getting into Mythic and then actually qualifying for these things. Because I
Yeah.
feel like
Oh,
like
sorry. Let me mute
yeah.
my.
So
Yeah,
yeah.
Keith's doing a podcast and getting dressed and taking calls and kicking ass.
Sorry, that's my wife.
No problem,
She
man.
told me, man.
No, it's all good. But yeah. So
Did I lose you?
No, you're good.
no.
Oh, there you go. I couldn't hear you guys. So, yeah,
Yeah.
but well, and Dave, going back, I think if you want to break this up, that's great. I mean, I'm available in the next maybe 9 o'clock. I don't know, yeah, or if you want to, we can
Uh,
talk off. Yeah.
yeah. We'll see. I think we'll take a break here and then whatever. Start another one at some point. Uh, so I will just wrap this up with one comment. I feel like people online just say it's easy to get Mythic to make themselves feel better that when they don't get Mythic. Uh, it's actually pretty freaking hard. It takes a lot of time. So uh, yeah, so I wouldn't just you know I would just be like, oh, whatever. It's not that hard. Yeah, it actually kind of is. So good. Pat yourselves on the back for that, both of you. Uh, so wait, are you? Oh, okay. All right. So I guess that wraps up this episode. Uh, Manic Vandals podcast number 5, and yeah, we will see you guys next time.
Perfect.
Yeah.